I am Dr. Mohammad Rafi, Associate Professor, Department of Cybersecurity at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. Today I want to discuss about network programming and management subject, in which the topic is a TCP socket options. What is a TCP socket the option? Here in a network programming, TCP socket options are the parameters that control the behavior of the TCP sockets, which are the endpoints for communication between the two nodes over a entire network using the TCP protocol. These options are used to configuring the aspect of the TCP connections, such as the timeout, buffer size, quality of services. When programming the TCP sockets, developers can use the functions like set socket option to set these other options before establishing the connection or during the lifetime of the connection. Similarly, they can use the functions like get socket option. By using this get socket option, generally to retrieve the current value of the options. Here, some common TCP socket options that can be utilized in a network programming. The options are socket keep alive option, TCP no delay option, socket reuse address. So, number of the options can be utilized in a network programming. Some of the TCP socket options, the first one is a socket keep alive option. So these enable or disabling the periodic sending of the keep alive messages on the TCP connections to detect if the peer is still alive. Next, TCP no delay option. This TCP no delay option, which is disabling the Nagel algorithm, which the buffers the small outgoing data packets to optimize the network bandwidth. Socket reuse address. In this option, socket reuse address option, which allowing the reusing the local addresses and the ports when binding to a socket, even if the socket is still in the time wait state. Here, socket timeout option. In this socket timeout option, sets a timeout for blocking socket operations such as receive and connect, after which the operation will returns with an error if no data is received or the connection cannot be established. TCP max segment, that means transmission control protocol, maximizing the segment size. That means set the maximum segment size, that is MSS, for the outgoing TCP packets. TCP window size. TCP window size means now which sets the size of the TCP receiver window, which determines the amount of the data that can be sent before receiving an acknowledgement. TCP quick acknowledgement option, so which enables or disables quick acknowledgement of received TCP packets. Next, the objectives of the TCP socket options. Here is the main objectives are performance optimization. The performance optimization, now in which TCP socket options can be used to improve the performance by adjusting parameters such as buffer sizes, timeouts, and congestion control algorithms. By tuning these other parameters, network the throughput can be maximized and latency should be the minimized, leading to the better application of the performance. So next the objective is control and customization. Control and customization, the TCP socket options which providing the control and customization over various aspects of the TCP, the communication between the client and server. Reliability enhancement. Reliability enhancements, the TCP socket options which enables the enhancement in a reliability by configuring TCP features like keep alive mechanism, which helps detecting and handling the network other failures or inactive connections. This ensures robustness in a communication and prevent connections from being dropped unnecessary activities or unnecessary the packets. Security. Security means here which providing the security, high the security, some TCP sockets options which offerings the security related features such as TCP MD5 SIG, which allow the users of the MD5, that means message digestive algorithm 5, the cryptographic hashes. With the concept of the cryptography will provide the high the security to the your the data packet. Whatever the data packets you are transmitting from sender to the receiver or source to the destination, with help of the cryptography mechanism, we can provide the high security to particular packets. Here is for TCP segments now, which is providing authentication and integrity verifications for TCP connections. Interoperability. Interoperability, that means here TCP socket options. Transmission control protocol, the socket options can facilitate the interoperability between the different systems and the networking devices, which allow the negotiation of TCP parameters and the features. This interoperability which ensures capability and the seamless communication across the diversified network environment. Resource management. The resource management means here in this TCP socket options which helps managing the networks and the system resources efficiently by controlling the aspect such as the maximum number of concurrent connections, the maximum number of segment size, and the TCP window size, or optimizing these the parameters which ensures the optimization utilization of resources. This is about the resource management. And next the objective is a fine tuning for specific the application. That means here the TCP socket option which allows the fine tuning for the specific type of applications or use cases. For instances, the options like TCP quick acknowledgement, it can be utilized to minimizing the acknowledgement delay for the applications with stringent latency requirements, while TCP no push can be utilized to delay the data transmission until the buffer is the full, which is optimizing the bandwidth utilization. Here is the TCP socket option which play the crucial role in the tunneling TCP communications, which meet the performance, increase the performance and reliability, and providing the high security whatever the packets we are transmitting, and provide the high security to that the packets, and the customization requirements. The customization the requirements for the modern network the applications. So this is about the objectives and applications. The applications Generally in a TCP, by using this TCP the socket, the options, various it can be utilized in various application areas. So this TCP socket option now, which is offers a range of the functionalities and the customizations that can be crucial for the various network the applications. Here, some of the applications of the TCP sockets are mainly these TCP sockets can be utilized in a controlling socket behavior. That is timeouts. That means setting timeout values to control how long socket should wait for the response before considering the connections or operations as failed. Buffer size. Buffer the size, what it do means adjusting the size of the sending and receiving the buffers to optimizing the data transparency to buffers. That means efficiently we can optimize the data transparency. Keep alive. Keep alive, which is enabling the keep alive packets to detect if the connection is still alive and to automatically close the inactive other connections. Here, the quality of services. What is the quality of services? The quality of services. That means here it is a type of one special type of the service. Quality of service. Generally, this quality of service can be provide the qualitative between the which provide the service between the client and servers by setting the priority levels of the packets. That means here now we are transmitting only the qualitative packets. That means here we give the high priority to qualitative packets. The priority level of the packets to ensure certain type of the traffics or the given the precedency in the network. That means traffic class. Traffic class it is a similar to type of the service which this the traffic the class now which is allowing the applications to specify the class of the traffic for differentiated the handlings. Congestion control. If you take this congestion control, so in congestion control also these are the TCP socket, the options can be utilized. That means TCP no delay. TCP no delay means disabling the Nagel algorithm to reduce the latency for small other packets, which can be useful for the real-time applications like gaming or streaming. TCP quick acknowledgement which adjusting the acknowledgement mechanism to optimize the trade-off between the latency and bandwidth usage. Next application is which is utilized in a routing and a network path selection. Routing and network other path selection is the most important. So by routing and network other path selection, now we can optimize the solution. That means here is what we are doing. Shortest path can be selected for the network and based on this the routing here provide the communication, transmit the packets from source to destinations. That is a routing and a network path selection. Here is in a routing and network path selections. Now generally we can utilize the type of the service field or time to live other fields. That is IPTOS type of service field or Internet Protocol TTL time to live field. So for specific routing or prioritization for the purposes. Next IP multicast TTL. This IP multicast TTL now which is setting the time to live values for multicast packets. And security. The security means here internet the protocol the transparent. Now this is the internet the protocol the transparent now which is allowing a socket to bind to a non-local IP addresses which can be useful for implementing the proxy servers and socket bind to device. That means here is socket bind to device, which is binding a socket to specific network interface and useful for the multi-homed host or network virtualization setups, debugging and performance monitoring. Here TCP info. TCP info, what it is doing generally, which is retrieving the detailed the TCP statistics for performing the monitoring and troubleshootings in a network over the networking. Socket debug. Socket debug here, which enabling the debug mode for the socket and capture the diagnostic the information. Here is these socket options for IPv6. That means the socket options for Internet Protocol version 6, which is specifying whether an IPv6 the socket can be handled IPv4 the connections or only IPv6 the connections. So now with the help of this option now we can specify whether it is a IPv6 or IPv4. Broadcaster and multi-casting. Broadcasting and multi-casting, that means socket broadcaster, which is enabling the broadcaster messages. Internet Protocol multicaster loop, now which is the controlling whether the multicast packets are looped back to the local system. Here is with these applications now, these are all the just the few the applications of how TCP socket options can be utilized over the network. Now the specific the options TCP socket options used that can be dependent on the requirement and the characteristics of the network application that being be developed. Methodologies and techniques. Here in socket the TCP socket option, what methodologies and what other techniques generally we can utilize. Here the some of the common methodologies and techniques now that can be used with the TCP the socket the options. First socket the creation. So this is a technique. TCP socket must be created using the socket system call. This call typically takes the parameter such as the address family, that means IPv4 or IPv6 Internet Protocol version 4 and Internet Protocol version 6. Here is a socket the type stream oriented for the transmission the control the protocol and the protocol. Usually here the protocol now 0 for the default the protocols. Next setting the socket options. Once the socket is created, the TCP socket options can be set using the set socket the option system call. That means these are the function call, set socket the option, these system call or function call. This call allow to specifying the level of the TCP socket option at which the option operates. That means usually these socket the options for the socket level options, so that means low level, medium level, or so here which is specifying the options to set and value of the options. This is about the setting the socket options and reading the socket options. Similarly, you can use the get socket option system call to retrieving the current value of a socket the options. Common TCP socket options. Generally here the common the TCP socket options now we can use socket reuse address. Now socket reuse address which allows the multiple other sockets to bind to the same local address and the port. Typically used to avoid the address already in use error. That means next TCP no delay. TCP no delay here, this disabling the Nagel algorithm. So this algorithm which delay the small packets to try to optimizing the network the performance. And keep alive, socket keep alive now, which is enable the periodic the transmissions of the keep alive messages on a connected the socket to detect if the connection has the failed or the connection is alive. That can be detected by using the so keep alive. That means now if you are transmitting the data packets from source to the destination, now with this so keep alive the option, now we can detect whether it is alive or not, whether it is working or not. If it is alive, the socket is alive, then only we can transmitting the data packets from source to destination. Here, performance tuning option. In this option, the performance tuning option, TCP socket options can be used to tune the performance of the TCP connections based on the specific requirements, such as the adjusting buffer sizes, that is socket send buffer, socket receive buffers, or setting the timeouts. Platform specifics means here some socket options may behave differently or have differently names on a different operating systems. Network as the sockets, it essentially to consult the documentation as a specific to your the platform. Error handling. Error handling means proper error handling is crucial. Why? Because here, while transmitting the packets, by using this error handling, now we can handle the errors. When the settings are getting the socket the options, errors can occur due to the invalid parameters or insufficient privileges or other systematic specification issues. Security considerations, which changing the certain TCP socket option, especially those are related to the keep alive behavior or buffer sizes, can have security the implications. Care should be taken to ensure that the chosen the option do not introduce the vulnerabilities. By understanding all these applications and effectively utilizing the TCP socket options, developers can fine tune and optimize the behavior of the TCP the connections to meet the requirement of their the applications. Here, the advantages and the disadvantages of the TCP socket options. Advantages of the TCP socket options are, first one is a reliability. Here, TCP ensures that reliable transmission from source to destination by using the acknowledgement and retransmission. It guarantees that the data is arrives and intact and in order. The connection oriented. The connection oriented means it is a TCP is a transmission control protocol, is a connection oriented. Now which is establishes the connection between the sender and the receiver before data exchange or before data transmission, and which ensuring the proper sequencing and error handling between the source and the destination or between the client and the server. Flow control. Flow control, that means TCP manages the rate of data transmission to prevent data loss due to the buffer overflow. And error checking. Error checking means here which include the checksums and checking the errors to detect the errors in a transmitted data and enhancing the reliability transmitted the reliability, and packet transmitter reliability can be enhanced by using the error checksum. And supporting streaming. Supporting streaming in TCP socket option which support the streaming data, that means flow of the packets, the flow of the information from source to the destination, that is streaming. So TCP socket option which will be supported to the flow of the packets or flow of the information, and which enabling the continuous the transmissions without the breaking it into the smaller the packets. Here is widely supported. The TCP is supported by the virtual all network the devices and operating systems, making it is a highly interoperable. And disadvantages. Disadvantages means here overhead. TCP has a higher overhead compared to the UDP due to the additional features like error checking, flow control, sequencing, which can impact the performance in a low latency applications. Latency, that is a connection oriented nature of the TCP that can be introduced the latency, especially during the connection establishment between the source and other destination, which might not be suitable for the real-time application, and like online gaming or voice over IP, that is VoIP, voice over internet the protocol. It is not suitable for the real-time application. Latency is not suitable for the real-time other applications. Here, limited broadcasting, which has limited broadcasting. TCP doesn't support the broadcasting as efficiently as UDP, which making the less suitable for the applicable requiring widespread data disseminations. Complexity, TCP, which feature rich nature makes it more complex to implement and manage the compared to the simpler the protocols like UDP, user data graph protocol. No suitable for the loss of the tolerance application. It is not suitable for the tolerant the applications. Here, this transmission socket option is not ideal for the applications where the occasionally data loss is acceptable, as it the prioritized reliability over a speed in such scenarios. Head of line blocking. In a transmission control protocol, if one packet is lost or delayed, subsequent packets are held until the lost packet is transmitted, causing head of line blocking and potentially reducing the throughput. Understanding these advantages and disadvantages, it is crucial for selecting the appropriate the protocol based on a specific requirements of a network application. Here, the conclusion of this the TCP socket the option is TCP socket option now which is offers the several the advantages such as the reliability, connection oriented communication, flow control between the server and client or between the sender and receiver, error checking, support for the streaming and wide the compatibility across different the platforms. So however, these the TCP socket the options now come with a certain the disadvantages which including the higher overhead latency issues, limited support. For broadcasting, complexity in the implementation unsuitable for the loss the tolerant the applications and the potential for the head of the line the blocking. Here the books are Unix network the programming by Richard the Steven and network the management by Subramanian. These two are the textbooks for TCP socket the options, and the reference book is a internet networking with TCP IP, and these are all the references for TCP socket the options.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.